Today, let's walk through the steps of sewing my dress for the Eras tour. Welcome, I do sewing and DIY related content, and I'm going to the Era store, which I'm so excited about. So I'm using pattern from Butterick. This is 6991 to make a very fun retro inspired dress with this navy blue sequin material. Now for this dress, I actually started off using this pattern thinking it was going to work great. I was a little overwhelmed, so I had started on the bottom portion of the dress first. It has like different panels to it, and I started sewing these all together. And as I started to go through, I realized that I misread the pattern and it did not have a lining, but it had an underlining. So because of that, I really had to start doing two separate dresses. I did the version with the lining and then a version with the blue sequin fabric, and that's how I started to go about this dress. So for most of this, I actually ended up not following the pattern because I had to sort of adjust and shift. As if you've ever worked with sequins, you know that you really need a lining on that material. So I wasn't going to be able to just get away with having an underlining, which is where you attach like your lining material to the outside fabric. So I had to do two separate dresses and then combine them together at the end. So for this though, everything was pretty simple as far as combining the panels. Like you had the lower panel, then you had the middle panel, and I just kept going through, working my way through all those pieces, sewing it all together. In addition, I also started working on the sleeves, which was mostly adding some of the gathering stitches up at the top and then sewing the whole like sleeve seam together so that I would have those separate seams that I would be able to then use these sleeves later on in the process. Once I got all that done, I started working on the bodice portion, which you did have to sew two back darts, so one on either side, and I did this for both the lining and then I was going to be repeating it for the blue sequin. But with this, I actually had to go through and start to make some little adjustments. So for these front pieces, I had to cut off the self-facing that the pattern had, and you'll see it a little better in the blue sequin fabric. So this was actually all just a test. I wanted to make sure if this was going to work, so I did it with my lining first since it was a lot cheaper. I tried it on, everything looked good with it, so I knew that this process was going to work as far as connecting the dress. So once I had that completed, I went through and attached the sleeve with right side together to that lining that we just sewed up, and then just pinned this all the way around. Since I had already taken those gathering stitches, this was very easy and quick to do. And then once I had all of this pinned up, I then went through, sewed the sleeve in place, and then repeated this whole process for the second sleeve. In addition, I did attach the top of the dress to the rest of the dress for the lining and put that on my dress form to see what it looked like. The first thing I noticed was it was way too long, so I was going to be adjusting the length on this, and that was something I was going to need to consider for the blue sequin fabric as well. So here's what I was talking about, that this pattern actually has this like self-facing. So I just went through and cut that off. So where that line was that you were going to be folding, I just cut all the fabric that was at that line so that this was what the finalized piece looked like. And then I went through the exact same process of putting the darts in for the back of this and then sewing these darts into place. So once I had really gotten rid of that lining portion, it was very simple to go through because I wasn't going to be using that self-facing aspect. And so then I sewed the darts in place and then matched the shoulder seams for both those front pieces as well as the side seams for where the front was going to be going, so that I could then attach this to the rest of the dress as well. So once I had it completed with the lining, I knew what I was doing with this blue sequin fabric, and everything started to go really nicely. In addition, I added in the sleeves for both the right and left side so I could get both of those in, and then sewed the sleeve into place, which was also a really fun process because I felt like it was really starting to come together, like the dress was getting sleeved, so we were so much closer. So here is what the outside of the dress looks like. I absolutely love the color. It is too long, so I ended up shortening the bottom as well as taking in some of that middle panel so that the dimensions stayed the same. The room was so messy from this fabric also, just wanted to give you a warning of how messy it looked. Once I had gotten that all completed though, I just matched with right sides together at the collar, both the lining as well as the blue sequin, and then just took a seam all the way around for that so that it was then combined, and then just used my serger on the lining. That's all I did for the hem for the lining, and then I used like binding for the hem for the blue so that I would be able to just take little invisible stitches. So now it was time to add in the invisible zipper, which this is where things probably got the most complicated or just really varied from how the pattern talked about. So with right sides together, I matched the invisible zipper with the blue sequin, only the blue sequin. I did not sew it into the lining. I then used my invisible zipper presser foot, sewed that zipper in, double checked to make sure that it was working, which it did. Everything looked good with the zipper. And then I pinned the zipper up on the second side, repeated that process to have it installed into the blue sequin fabric. Now it was time to attach the zipper to the lining. And for this, I folded the lining in about maybe a quarter to half of an inch and pinned it in place. And then I actually just went through and hand stitched it in so that it would have like a nice and visible look to it. I didn't want you to be able to see the seam from the outside of the fabric, so that's why I hand stitched all of this in. It had a really nice clean look and I was happy with it at the end. So here's what the dress currently looks like. All that's left to do is finish off the sleeves. I was so happy with it. It was so blue, it was so shiny. I loved how it turned out. So I did the exact same process I did on the hem, is I just used some of this navy blue binding that I had on hand, pinned it up, and then just sewed that into place, and then folded this over and then took a hand seam. So this is what it ends up looking like. It's not the best match for the lining fabric, but it matches that blue sparkly really well, and I was happy with how it gave it a really clean and neat look. It also feels really nice on your skin. What I also loved about doing it this way was because I now had these little openings for the sleeves, so I'd be able to wear like any friendship bracelets that I made to the concert, and it really just gave it a nice touch and made it perfect for the event that we were going to. So here is what the finalized dress looks like. Everything came out probably better than I anticipated. I didn't know if I was actually going to make this dress because I was having some issues with my arthritis. So the fact that it got completed and looks this good is just like a win to me. So now it was just time to pack it up, take it to Indianapolis. So this is what the view from our hotel looked like. It was so close to the stadium. Everything was Taylor Swift themed within the hotel, within Indianapolis. The dress made it on the flight. These were also some of the friendship bracelets I brought, so I took this footage the day after so you can see the little wristlet. And then here was our seats. So at this point, I'm just going to put on some music. Since we cannot actually listen to the show, feel free to play your favorite Taylor Swift song. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you want to see next. Thanks for watching.